Hello and welcome. My name is Chris from ChristopherHole.com, and welcome to episode 19 of the podcast, where we're going to be talking about the first 2 steps to your weight loss program. Now, there are a lot of discussions about weight loss programs. Are they good? Are they bad? I do believe there is a place for them as long as we know how to use them correctly. If you go into a weight loss program knowing that it's not going to be sustainable, it's not meant to be sustainable, there is an end to it, and that the problem isn't the weight loss program itself, it's what you were doing prior to the weight loss program that gained you the weight. So we've got to start thinking about weight loss programs in a slightly different light, because there are people that they work for and there are people that they don't work for. So we've just got to look at, okay, well, why did it work for the people that it worked for, and why didn't it work for the people that it didn't work for? And then we can start understanding how we can get more out of a weight loss program. So if we were to do a weight loss program for a period of time and then go back to a different way of eating, a more healthier type of way of eating, then what we can do is we can then sustain the changes. Because if you look at most people's diets, they do change throughout the years. They certainly change from when you're younger to when you're older. And that's how we need to think of our weight loss program. It's just a transition into a different way of eating, and then we move into a more, let's just say, normal way of eating, or healthier way of eating, if you want to call it that. So as long as we know what we're doing with weight loss programs, I believe they can work for you. It's just making sense of it and just being sensible with them. Not restricting too much, but if you do need to restrict some stuff, then by all means do it for a period of time. As long as you don't yo-yo back and flip back the other way and eat far too much of that food, then you're going to get a lot more from it than you would before. So I guess my sort of big advice for it is to be sensible with it and don't sort of go overkill with a weight loss program. But with that said, just quickly mention my social media. It's at Christopher Hole on Twitter, and then you've got Christopher Hole Training on Facebook. Please do come along there, like and follow. I try and share as much as I can. On Facebook, I've got Facebook Lives, I've got a podcast, I do a regular whiteboard, which again is all across different areas of health and fitness, be it exercise, be it diet, be it behavior. This one's kind of a mix of the three, because we're talking about weight loss and there are elements of all of it. Alternatively, if you want to work with me on a one-to-one basis, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either go to christopherhole.com/online-training and just pop a note in the contact form at the bottom, and we can go through a weight loss program on a remote basis via Skype, via email, where we would set you up with a monthly program over 3 months, be it exercise, diet, and working on certain behaviours. If you're in the Bristol area, you can come to christopherhole.com/personal-training. Again, pop a note in the contact box in the bottom. And again, we can work face-to-face, if you're in the Bristol area, that is, with me in the gym. But it would be very similar to the online training. We would just be doing the exercise, and to some degree, we would be doing a little bit of the consulting at the gym rather than online. So either one of those is a good option for you. Just again, come along there, drop a note, and we'll be in contact. So back to the content of today, the first 2 steps to your weight loss program. So as I mentioned, there is a place for them. It's just knowing how to use them. And as long as we set ourselves up correctly on them, then they can work fine for you. So step 1 is assess and goal set. Step 2 is keep a journal. We'll go through assess and goal set first, and then we'll come on to keeping a journal and what types of things you need to be putting in there and why. So, excuse me. So, if we're talking about assess and goal set, first of all, it's knowing where you are. A lot of people approach programs without really knowing where they are, or they've got an idea of what they're doing, but they might not need to do everything that they think they need to do. An example being, I do a lot of assessing and goal setting with people, and one lady came to me wanting to lose some weight and get fitter. She has a wedding coming up in a few months' time, and she said, "Oh, I need to lose this weight. I've not trained for a long time. I think it was about a year or so, and but I need your help." So I was like, okay, fine. So we sat down, we went through the assessment, and it was at that point that she realised that she wasn't as unfit as she thought she was, and she wasn't as, let's just say, fat as she thought she was. Now, some of the things that I do or that I did with her on the assessment was I took her weight, and there wasn't a great deal in difference. I took her body fat percentage, and again, there wasn't a great deal in difference than a year prior. And her circumferences around her waist, again, weren't that different to a year before. Now, to me, that showed all of that, let's just call it stress. It's not as like an intense stress, but, it plays on your mind. But all that was in her head. There wasn't a massive amount different in the numbers. She thought she was very unfit. She wasn't that unfit. So it's helping you know where you are. And from that, we can then understand what goals you need to take and what actions you need to take towards those goals. Because the fourth thing that you need to do, one is weight loss, one is taking your weight, one is understanding your body fat percentage, and the other is circumferences. The fourth one of those is knowing your numbers. So know what food and what drink you need to be consuming during your weight loss program. What you can then start to do is start understand your exercise needs, if you will. So once we've got all of that data, your weight, your body fat percentage, your circumferences to start with, and then eventually knowing your numbers with regards to the amount of food that you're eating, once we've got all of that, then we can really start focusing in on what exercise you need to be doing and what restrictions that you need to be taking with regards to the diet, or what changes you need to be making with regards to the diet. Now, this is where sort of the second part comes in, which is keeping a journal. So number one is just to write everything down. So the focus isn't we need to be losing, 2 pounds of body fat in the first week. The first goal is just to start writing everything down. Because once we understand, what food you are taking in, we can understand the calorie content of that food, because all you might need to do is just reduce the amount of food that you're taking in. It doesn't really matter what you're reducing, but just reducing the amount, the portion sizes, portion control and things like that. If you are writing it down and it does look like, oh my God, I'm eating far too many biscuits or far too much chocolate or far too many cakes or just far too many snacks, it might just be just eating less of those. Keep to the meals that you're eating, but just all the bits in between that you're doing. The amount of people that I've worked with who literally just remove 80% or 90% of the snacks that they eat, and the difference that makes. So once you start writing that down over the first 3, 4, or even 7 days, you'll get that pattern. You'll start seeing it. Once we can calculate, if you're eating too much of one thing or too much of another thing, we can start obviously reining that in and, reducing that and making sense of that. Now, once we've got those numbers, so once we know what you're taking in, it's just then a simple case of, if you're not doing any exercise, to start, or if you are already doing exercise, knowing where you need to go next. So it's making sure that everything you're doing is it's objective. We're not just guessing. We're not just using it up to, what you think, because as the example with that girl earlier, or lady earlier, it was very much... It was all that part was all in her head. She wasn't that far away from where she needed to be. And all she needed to do was just make a few adjustments here or there, and there we go. But if we hadn't have done that, and we'd have thought, right, okay, and I'd have just taken what she was saying verbatim, then it would have been, we might have made more drastic changes that she didn't need to make, if that makes sense. So what we need to do, first of all, is write everything down. That helps us know where you are, and then again, we can start setting realistic goals with realistic actions that go along with those goals. The other thing that you need to be doing is writing down all of your workouts and your activity. Now, it doesn't have to be huge amounts of detail. We don't really need to be thinking about, being very precise with it. What we do need to do is start doing more than you were doing before, if that makes sense. And the more objective we can be about that, the better. So if you're at the moment going out and doing 10,000 steps, it might be, well, okay, that's at a very low or moderate intensity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing 3 blocks of 3,000 steps, but at a higher intensity. Or I'm going to start doing 8,000 steps at a higher intensity, or something like that. So we can start to progressively build on the exercise that you're doing. If you're thinking about starting an exercise program, think about, okay, well, I'm going to do the activity that I'm doing, which is walking and the steps that I'm doing, but I'm also going to add in one exercise session a week. It might just be cardio. You might add some weights in there depending on how skilled you are within the gym. So it's very much thinking about just start by writing everything down. What will then start happening is you'll start to get used to doing it. Once you're used to doing it, that's when you know you're ready to move on to the next step. What you find a lot of people with a weight loss program is they take on too much too soon. Just take on these little bits, start writing everything down, get used to doing that. Then start thinking about, well, okay, now I'm going to increase intensity here, or I'm going to do an extra session here, or whatever it needs to be. Get used to that and then move on to the next level. Because the third thing that you'll then need to do is start reading food labels and then start writing down what you're eating. So you might start looking at, well, okay, I'm going to read the food labels. I'm going to look at the sugar content. I'm going to look at the fat content. I'm going to look at the protein content. I'm going to look at the calorie content, whatever it needs to be. But it's thinking about all of these things in a logical progression and just being sensible and not taking on too much too soon. So where we've got assess and goal set, which is step 1, we've got, not only do we know where we are, we've got 4 things that we need to be doing with that. We need to be checking weight, body fat percentage, circumferences, and knowing our numbers with regards to the food that we're eating and the activity that we're doing. The second step is keeping a journal. And within that, first of all, we're writing everything down that we consume with regards to the food and the drink. We're then going to start writing down all the workouts that we do and the activity that we're doing. And then once we're used to that, the third thing that we're going to do is start reading food labels and writing down what we're eating with regards to sugar content or fat content or protein content or just general calorie content of food. So we're not taking all of that on at once. We're taking it on one bit at a time. So if you can self-coach yourself, then just listen to this episode a few times, but maybe once every week or so, and just think, well, okay, all I'm going to do is I'm going to just start writing everything down. And then in the next week, just listen to again, what do I need to do now? Right, yeah, I've started writing everything down. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start focusing on my activity. Now I've started writing everything down. And then building in that way. And then what we can do is start tracking your weight, body fat percentage, and circumferences over a period of time, and then we can see if what you're doing is getting you the goal that you want to get. And if weight loss is that, then we just track that over time. Once we've got you to the weight that we need to get you to, then we can start thinking about transitioning you back into a more normal / healthy way of eating. So again, if you need help with that, come to christopherhole.com/online-training, or if you're in the Bristol area, come to christopherhole.com/personal-training, and I can help you along that journey. If not, use this video or podcast as a means of self-coaching, and hopefully you can get to where you need to get by self-coaching. So many thanks for watching. Many thanks for listening. My name is Chris from christopherhole.com. I will speak to you in episode 20.